This episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/MBO. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network. You can follow us on our YouTube channel as well at LA Rams Up. I'm your host, Mark. I'll be joined occasionally by my football gurus, Paul and Ian. Let's get to it.
Rams Nation, welcome back to another edition of the Rams Up Roundtable here on the Rams Up Podcast Network. Please like, subscribe, and share this video and podcast with all your fellow Rams and football fans. Dang it, we very much appreciate it. But gentlemen, how are you guys doing today?
Pretty good.
Good. What about you, Paul? How you doing, dude?
Doing well, holding it down on the Beast Coast. Nothing but love out to our LA Ramley in our hearts and in our prayers. So hopefully this will be a pleasant distraction for everybody.
Yeah, pleasant. What about you, Tom? How you doing, man?
All good, man. All good. Looking forward to again, hearts and prayers and thoughts go out to everybody in LA. It's rough down there, and but again, like you said, let's talk some football. And this game's going to get played, whether one way or another, wherever it is, and we'll get into that a little bit. But let's break it down.
Yeah, let's do it. And real quick, before we start doing that, Rams Nation, I know a lot of you live in these surrounding areas where a lot of fires are going down. So new fires are starting, old fires are trying to be taken care of. But real quick, go ahead and pause the video as I show these quick little slides. If you or anyone you know are being negatively affected by these fires in Los Angeles County or the Valley, go ahead and pause it, take a screenshot, and use it and share this info with everybody. So we have here real quick some links. If you need immediate help, shelter, check out the fire department, any emergency stuff, any loans. There's plenty of resources out there. There's that. There's also links to donate. If you feel like you can help in other ways, go ahead and screenshot that. And then a little bit more here on this slide as well. So we just wanted to share those info or that information out with all you guys. And whatever we can do to help each other out, help out Rams Nation, help out Californians, help out LA natives, and gosh, hope everyone will stay safe and your lives will get back on track as soon as possible. But all right, Rams Nation, enough about the world and the chaos. How about some football chaos as Rams versus Vikings wild card playoffs round number 1, as the game is, officially slated to be here in Los Angeles Monday night, 5 p.m. And the NFL, with all the fire stuff going on, wisely put out a notice to the teams and to all football fans saying, hey, if things go down a darker and darker path in terms of weather and all that stuff, the game will be moved to the state of Arizona in Glendale at the State Farm Stadium, Rams Nation. So what a bummer that would be if things do end up turning that way, as I have tickets to this game to go enjoy our Rams in person and cheer them on and give them that home field advantage. Hopefully things improve, but in case you did not know and you do have tickets and you did plan on going to this game Monday night, there is a contingency plan where the game could be moved to Arizona if things do not improve. But we're going to go with the assumption that, yes, the game will be at SoFi Stadium and no problems will occur, right, gentlemen here. So with that said, Rams Nation, a quick update on our own roster as Blake Corum officially placed on injured reserve. What a bummer that was for him to break his arm there. Sucks. So in response to that, old friend Royce Freeman is signed to the practice squad and most likely will probably be elevated for the playoff tournament. And my guess is, he's played some good football for us. I've seen him run the ball pretty nice last year and so forth. And then with an extra spot being available immediately, the Rams wisely designated former starting safety, John Johnson, to return and be available for this playoff tournament run. So I'll start with you here, Mark. Do you like the elevation of John Johnson and the signing of Royce Freeman?
Well, as I said in the podcast a couple of days ago, the Rams have to make a move at running back. It's just a matter of what degree. And this probably fits about right. I mean, how many guys are out there ready to go? Apparently, Royce Freeman is. So he's a good fit. I guess my question is, who's the number 3 back? Is it going to be Cody Schrader or Royce Freeman? I guess it's going to be Royce Freeman. Ronnie Rivers will be the number 2 guy. Now, John Johnson, I'm just curious, would the Rams make a move, plug him back in a wild card game? The secondary is pretty solid, really, especially our safety group. I welcome him back, but I mean, it's a little risky, right, to start him again, maybe, to give him significant snaps, and maybe they'll just ease him in slowly. He's an experienced guy, though, really good football player. But yeah, they both make sense, and yeah.
Right on. What about you, Tom? How do you feel about
moves.
what about you, Tom? How do you feel about the moves being made here?
No, I mean, I think they're good. They're backups, guy. I don't think either of them are going to see significant minutes. Like Mark said, the safety room is pretty solid right now, and just Freeman just hasn't got any snaps. I don't see him. I think it'll be Kyren and Rivers for the most part, and I mean they've always run a 2-man rotation all year long. But if something happens to Rivers, or Kyren, God forbid, then they have somebody that knows the offense. They can go in there, and especially in the picking up the blocking duties on the pass rush and things like that. So I think they're both going to be not playing unless something happens.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. What about you, Paul? What are your thoughts on the moves here?
Yeah, the same. They went with familiarity. Royce Freeman has that familiarity. That's usually what the Rams do in terms of their roster moves. So for Johnny Johnson, I'm sure he was probably ready to go about 2 weeks ago. They were conserving one of their roster spots. So they'll probably just, if they do utilize him, it'll be working him in maybe on certain downs, maybe, obvious passing downs, things of that nature. But more importantly, he'll be there like whispering in Cam Kinchen's ear, be careful of this, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where his true value is going to come into play. So it's great to have them both back on the roster. I'm a big fan of Royce Freeman, by the way.
Yeah, Rolls Royce. He ran the ball
That's
pretty
right.
good for us last season when he was getting handoffs out of the pistol. So, hey, at least it's somebody we know can play, and I think that benefits us greatly. But with that said, Rams Nation, before we get into keys to victory and all the other fun stuff, we got to talk about not building blocks, not starting blocks, not any of the blocks you're thinking of right now, Rams Nation. We got to talk about Paul's power blocks as the playoff tournament begins. We got to come out strong and hit people in the mouth. And Paul, why don't you take it away, dude?
Mm-hmm. And like we said how many episodes again? If you look right behind me, that's all we want to talk about. That's all we care about. Everything else is a lead up into talking about the trophy. So, what I try to do for the playoffs, and, I rewatched the Viking game, and I have to say I was completely puzzled and baffled in terms of that game. But for the Rams, I try to say, like, what were the 3 primary win-loss indicators that we've been talking about all year? And it really came down to 3. And it was time of possession, the red zone touchdown percentage, both for offense and defense, obviously, and also the turnover differential. So I think those 3 metrics, if you look at them, pretty much when it comes to Rams wins and losses, they really do tell the tale of the tape. So they also incorporate other key features and facets of the Rams in terms of their gameplay. So as we go through it, I'll highlight some of those. So the first one is the time of possession. If you take a look at the Rams rushing offense for the year, 104 yards game per season. But there's one thing that you can't take away from, and that's Aaron Kyren has been probably next to Stafford, right? It's like a 1A and 1B. He has been the stellar offensive player. If you look at those numbers, 1,299 rushing yards, 14 TDs, translates for the Rams. The time of possession is 23rd in the league, about 29 minutes. If you take a look at their two opponents, Detroit's at number 3, just looking ahead a little bit, right? Detroit's at number 3 and Minnesota's at 14. So, it's a very significant number. The Rams, when they dominate the TOP, they're a completely different team. They really are. Their defense plays better, obviously, because the defense is fresher. We know they have a lot of high-energy players, young, high-energy players on defense, so that makes a lot of sense. But also, like we've always said, Stafford's like a point guard. As those touches go up, the better he plays. So I think that really translates the relationship between the ground game from the Rams and the TOP, right? And incidentally, Stafford's third down percentage, I think, move hand in hand. Those three are so interconnected. If you look at when the Rams play well, those three are just moving together in sync. So that to me is primary. The Rams cannot get off this platform. They have to ensure that they get their ground game going early and make sure that it stays intact for all 4 quarters. Everything else will feed off of that platform. If you look at that Minnesota game, and it was really, really interesting, Ram Nation. I had to rewatch it at 3 a.m., right? Because I had actually fell asleep. I was sort of embarrassed to say that. But when I rewatch it, I just happened to turn on ESPN. It was really interesting. And the first thing one of the announcers says, an ex-NFL player, he said, when Minnesota watches this game, they're going to kick themselves that they didn't run the ball 40 times. You know what? And they're absolutely right. So something must have happened with Aaron Jones, because when I was watching, I noticed Aaron Jones only had not his usual number of carries, but I thought that was really, really interesting that he said that, because that was the first thing that popped into mind for me. The second thing, we've been talking about it. We've seen it, X blowing up on it, talking about the wide receiver assets. So this one comment about the Rams resurrecting their deep strike passing game, we've been talking about it since week 4, right? They have to resurrect their deep strike passing game. And you saw it in the Detroit game and how they were mugging the Minnesota receivers at the line of scrimmage. You have to be able to threaten defenses vertically so that does not happen. You have to scare them early and you have to scare them often. Why am I bringing that up? The Rams have, in my opinion, so number one, the Rams are probably one of the healthiest teams in the league right now in terms of injuries, apart from our buddy Blake Corum, which was just a bone-crushing loss, right? But if you think about it, look at the wide receiver room. Look at the wide receiver assets that we are not able to get on the field. Jay Witt, right? Tyler Johnson, who's got a ring, right? And, of course, Tutu. And I had sent out just a couple of updates to the Rams Up crew. We were talking specifically about some of the yak abilities. Like, for example, Puka's yak percentage is at 52%. That means 52% of his yardage is all yak, right, after the catch. But if you look at some of these players, for example, Tyler Johnson, he's at close to 70%, right? Jay Witt's over 70% in terms of his yak. So you have big-time players that when they get their hands on the ball, they can take it to the house. And that's what you need to do. Rams have to find a way to incorporate these receivers. So the WR4 position is going to be absolutely crucial. And it would be a nice way to sort of rotate. I know a lot of people talking about King Cup, right? Try to keep him fresh, right? And in all fairness to King Cup, this is what happens when you use your wide receivers like pseudo tight ends. The wear and tear will obviously catch up to them. And you have big body receivers like Jay Witt and Tyler Johnson that can take the load off of Puka and King Cup and keep them fresh, particularly near the red zone and on third down. Watch the third down percentage. Watch the red zone efficiency go through the roof if Puka's fresh in those situations and King Cup is fresh in those situations. So I think that type of management is going to be absolutely crucial for the Rams moving forward. The red zone efficiency, if you take a look at it, 37% on the season. Over the last 3, it has improved to 41%. It's got to be at 50% and better. And I hate to keep going back to the Minnesota game, but Minnesota lost that game where? In the red zone. How many empty trips in the red zone? And here's a great point. Detroit threw 2 interceptions, right, Ram Nation? Minnesota was still -1 in the turnover differential. You want to know why? 3 times they were stopped empty on 4th down. So technically that's a turnover. You turn over on downs. So think about that. So a little thing like that coming away empty, and the number of times that they had it within the 10-yard line, right in the goal line, right in front of them, where they could have just pounded it in, they chose to throw the ball and they came away empty again, or they had to settle for field goals. Red zone efficiency is absolutely crucial in the playoffs. In my opinion, these three metrics, TOP, red zone, and obviously turnover differential, will decide the playoffs. It's that simple. You can break it down game by game by game. One other thing about the red zone for the Rams, if you take a look at their roster, you take a look at their players, we got Park, Higbee's back. The physicality that Higbee's going to bring back to the ground game, and that was the first thing I said to the Rams Up crew. I said, yes, it's great that he's back catching passes. Let's give an update on Higgs. Since he's been back, he's already got 2 touchdowns. Fantastic. So he's already cranking, looking for the end zone. In the last 3 games, 8 receptions, 66 yards, 5 gone for first down. And as his confidence in his knee builds, he's going to be even more dangerous. But the physicality in the ground game and allowing Iron Kyren to get to the edge, watch those jet sweeps get to the edge, pass protecting for Stafford, that's where Higgs' value is really, really going to come into play. The Rams have to exploit their size and physicality. They have large receivers. I love the fact that they're throwing those screens, those tunnel and bubble screens. It's absolutely right on the money. Make those cornerbacks tackle. If they want to line up and man up, make them tackle. The Rams receivers have shown that there is no one better in this league in that wide receiver room when it comes to getting yards after catch than the Rams crew. And then lastly, the Rams in the red zone has to talk about defensive red zone percentage. Right now, they're at about 50%. It has to be better than that. And a lot of that has to do with their interior run defense. So if you move forward in the playoffs, take a look at that interior run defense. That's pretty much going to be the name of the game for the red zone for the Rams. Their turnover differential, the Rams have done a great job protecting the football. They are tied for 10th in the league and +6 over the last, according to my stats, over the last 4 games. They have only turned it over once. We're not including the Seattle game. 1 turnover in the last 4 games. That's the type of clean football that we are talking about. But more importantly, on defense, they have to generate turnovers, and they are starting to do that. We're starting to see more INTs. And I think that's also a function of the pass pressure rate as the Rams start to generate more sacks, as the Rams start to generate those hits and those errant throws from the quarterbacks. The Rams secondary and linebackers are going to be able to turn those into INTs and hopefully a couple of pick sixes. So like we saw our boy Van Ginkel, right? He always had a couple, right? If he didn't drop that one, that might have been a totally different game, Ram Nation. But and remember that, McVay, don't throw the screen on his side. Throw it on the opposite side because he's going to be cheating, looking for one of those. But I think these are the power blocks. This is where the Rams should focus on these 3 components. I think everything else will take care of itself. The Rams are healthy, and they are primed to do some damage.
Yeah, great points. Great power blocks here by you, Paul. Mark, any quick thoughts on any of these points here by Paul?
Yeah, I did want to point out a couple of things. One, the top 8 teams in turnover differential are all in the playoffs this year. And I also wanted to note that, Paul, you missed it, but on the post-game reaction video, Ian went on a little bit of a rant talking about what you're talking about here, getting Witt in the game more, Tutu and these guys, and maybe not pushing Kupp to the sideline, but just, getting some of these other guys involved more. And it was kind of interesting. I don't know if you saw it, Ian, but Cameron De Silva came out with an article the very next day with the same thoughts. And I've seen it elsewhere too. So there is almost a consensus perhaps among some Ram content makers that, hey, Kupp, we all love him. He's great. He's one of the best wide receivers to ever suit up for the Rams, but he's not 100%. He's not the Cooper Kupp of a couple years ago. And I know that's painful to hear, but I'm not saying that's the case, but that's the argument a lot of people are making, and they might be right.
Yeah, something's up. And we need more explosion and more separation when routes are being ran by receivers. And I'll just leave it at that. You can watch the post game if you want to hear me get mad about stuff. But Tom, how do you feel about all the points here that Paul had?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything, of course, and I also agree with that. We need to get Whittington in particular, because he can be out there and he can also do the blocking assignments, where Tutu is, has to be much more of a spot player, because he does his best, but he just can't, he can't take out the edge on a, coming across. Just not going to happen. So, but the one thing I did want to add was on the Higbee conversation that we used to run the fourth wide receiver out there and sometimes pull the tight end off. And, when we're trying to get some of these weapons on the field, we can't do that anymore, right? So Higbee's got to be out there in key situations. So that even eliminates one more opportunity. So it is going to have to be a substitution situation. And also with Higbee, over his career, I've been a little bit critical of him, particularly as it relates to his red zone efficiency. Just whatever reason, just wasn't the guy in the red zone compared to all these other tight ends. And quite frankly, that's probably what demoted him among tight end rankings over the years. He just didn't have a lot of touchdown catches for whatever reason. However, when like Paul said, he's had a couple, already in the end zone just off of this injury. And my take is that the Rams, as we know, one of the negatives of this season has been this just atrocious tight end production that we've seen. But also none of this offense has any tape of tight end production, as glass half full, right, in the playoffs. So yeah, I do expect McVay to take advantage of that and keep Higbee in tight. But he's gonna be a big producer in this game because of that. In general, it's the trust of Stafford, as well as the fact that teams are not going to be able to scheme and plan for tight end production out of the Rams on the tape.
Yeah, I agree. I hope McVay saw, you can run a tight end screen like LaFleur. Oh, you can run a running back screen like LaFleur called in this past game. I hope he will do that with Higbee and others, because I think it'll work. And I agree with all that, gentlemen. But great power blocks here, Paul, as always, as we hope. These will carry with a Rams victory on Monday night, no matter where they play. Walmart parking lot, SoFi Stadium, Arizona, wherever it is. Hopefully, they use all these points and score points, stop people, and get it in that damn end zone. But man, Rams Nation, playoff football is fantastic. As the Vikings 14-3 as the number 5 seed. Rams 10-7 was close to 11 this last week. That would have been fun to see. The backups beat the Seahawks. And we claimed the 4 spot because of that loss. And here we are hosting a team we beat earlier in the season, as that was a really wild Thursday night game as I was at too. Everyone thought Cooper Kupp was getting traded that week. Nakua out of nowhere was like, I'm fully ready to go and catch 10 passes for 100 yards in this game. As Brian Flores said today or yesterday, that previous matchup on Thursday Night Football, they were totally caught off guard that Nakua was going to play that game. And he flat out said they were unprepared for it, and it showed, which is why he had a great day in his first game back. So things very different. Both teams have transformed into just very different ball clubs since then. But with that, we got to go through the Viking season here, and they won their first 5 games. And then coming out of that bye, they lost back-to-back games against division rival Detroit Lions in Minnesota earlier in the year. Then they came here on Thursday night, got caught off guard by the passing offense, and lost to us in LA. Then they won their next 9 games, and everyone's like, oh, Vikings, it's their year. Wow, Sam Darnold, comeback player of the year. Pay him $50 million. Forget McCarthy, all that stuff. Kevin O'Connell, coach of the year. They have to pay him too. And then they lost they lost the season finale away in Detroit, as everyone saw them just get absolutely thumped on offense as they were shut down by the Detroit Lions defense. And eventually the Vikings defense, who put up a good fight, eventually just got worn down with all the time they had to be on the field, and eventually led up 31. And man, Rams Nation, I'm sensing a little trend here based off a Lions loss, and then you got to play the Rams. Interesting. As gosh, again, week 7, Vikings lose to the Lions. Week 8, Vikings lost to the Rams in LA. Week 18, the Vikings lose to the Lions. And then here we are, wild card weekend. Rams Nation, can we do it again? Can we give the Lions their only loss of the year against, or the Vikings, excuse me, their only losses of the year to the Lions and to the Rams? And shout out to Regal Sports for putting that fun little stat up. But Tom, is this trend legit?
I don't think so. It doesn't have I don't think it has a lot of relevance. There's some other stats that are pretty cool though, in terms of like the Rams being the fourth seed, and there's some other cool things that are similarities that play into this a little bit. But the bigger thing for me is this Vikings matchup. They're I just counted it up. I think I'm pretty close, but they're something like 9-0 in 1-score games this year. And so, good for them. They can win tough games, right? But there's also something to be said for the fact that, usually those teams the following year are the ones that fall off, and the teams that are losers in 1-score games the following year. I know it's not the following year and so forth and so on. I'm just saying, I don't think 14-3 really tells the whole story about how good this team is. The odds makers also are giving us them only 1.5 points on the road, which makes it essentially a toss up, or even favors the Rams a little bit if home field's worth 2.5. So it is what it is. But I think that I think it's a good matchup for the Rams, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. And I hope that trend will continue. I'll say that for sure. But Rams Nation, we got to talk about this Vikings roster as a whole. As this is a team that's won 14 games is pretty freaking legit if you haven't realized it. And we were playing good football when we beat them back earlier in the season. But we'll start on the Vikings offensive side of things. So we have quarterback Sam Darnold. You have Nick Mullins, and now they're going to be elevating Daniel Jones. I know he's not pictured on this graphic here, but he will probably be the official backup for this playoff run. Then you have Aaron Jones, the former Packer, who has had a good season and maybe was a little banged up this past week, but I'm sure he'll get his fair share of carries, along with Cam Akers, who's overtaken Ty Chandler on this depth chart, as he, former Ram, who said this offense sucks, I want out of here, got sent away to a bunch of different places, tore both Achilles, and he's still making plays. I tip my cap to him on just that respect, as I don't remember the last player to tear his Achilles twice and still be productive. Wow. So he's still a good player. Then you have CJ Ham that uses the full pack position. Then, of course, all-world Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, the former USC product. You have Jalen Naylor, Brandon Powell, former Ram. You have TJ Hawkinson, the former Pro Bowler at tight end. Josh Oliver, former Ram. Johnny Munt rotates in there as well. Then you have Cam Robinson, Blake Brando, Garrett Bradbury, Dalton Rinser, Brian O'Neill, and what a good group this is. And Paul, what do you think about this offensive side of the ball real quick?
Yeah, I mean, the Vikings roster as a whole, just rock solid from top to bottom. They have a solid wide receiver crew. You got to love it. Naylor, tough as nails, right? You got obviously Jefferson. Jefferson would probably run about 20 times faster if he left the bling in the locker, but that's okay, right? But it's a rock solid, it's a rock solid offensive unit. Cam had that huge run, right, to get them inside the 5-yard line. So this is a team you can't sleep on, right? And Coach O is just phenomenal. He's a great coach. And me personally, this is what I did not want to happen. I did not want this to happen in the first round where McVay and Coach O would have to eliminate one or the other. So I mean, with all that being said, the area of focus should be you have to exploit Cam Robinson. You have to exploit Cam Robinson. Yeah. If there is a weak link on this O-line, that's where it is. And the Rams have to come at him from every angle, whatever it takes, blitz from the edge, stunts, whatever it takes, verse bull rushing him, whatever it takes. They have to exploit that weak link. The other thing is Sam Darnold, he doesn't, like a lot of quarterbacks that like to step up in the pocket. They don't do well with rush that's up the middle. And the Rams have to do that. So they have to get that rush from up the middle. They have to get their hands up, those tip passes. We saw that with Jared Goff, right? How many tip passes did Minnesota generate? Led directly to 2 turnovers. So those are the type of things, those quarterbacks that like to sit in the pocket, and you see a lot of teams doing that. They know where the quarterback's going to be. It's the same type of drop, same location. It's just like we used to tell our defensive guys when they're in the running game, disrupt the running game, remember the mesh point because that's where the ball is going to be every time. Well, it's the same thing with the passing game. So generate that pressure up the middle and take advantage of Robinson. And more importantly, get after it against this team offensively. They're coming, off a tough loss. They're not going to just throw down another stinker. You're going to have to make it happen.
Yeah, and to your point about Cam Robinson, their left tackle filling in, Rams Nation, you remember their all-pro level left tackle, Christian Darrisaw, got hurt in that Thursday night game against us, Rams Vikings on that day, as the Vikings, recovered pretty good from it, but that is a big blow, and we have to exploit that. I agree with you, Paul, for sure. But Mark, what are your thoughts on the Vikings offense as a whole right here?
Well, one more comment on that Christian Darrisaw injury, and that was at the end of the first half. I think it was the last play or second to last play, and they could have taken a knee, and they handed off, and Darrisaw blew out his knee, and that might have been one of the most impactful plays of the Viking season. Cam Robinson is a good tackle, but Christian Darrisaw is excellent. And what it really surprised me last week how much pressure the Lions were able to bring and get on Sam Darnold. And I think the Rams can probably do even a little bit better. The Lions defense has been racked by injuries. The Rams defense, young, hungry, very talented. They can get pressure with 4 guys, and I expect them to do so. And that's going to be a key matchup. How well they can protect Darnold and how Darnold performs under pressure. To me, that's we haven't got to our keys to victory yet, but to me, that's the ball game for me right now. Is Jared Verse and Fisk and Young and these guys getting in Darnold's face and how he performs under that pressure.
Absolutely. I mean, what a shock, though, right? Mark Gentleman, Rams Nation, get to the quarterback, fluster him. Good things will happen for you for doing that to that quarterback. It's shocker. We saw New York Jets Sam Darnold this last week, and hopefully we see a little bit more of that on this wild card matchup. But Tom, what are your thoughts on the Vikings offense as a whole right here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if Darnold has time and he gets comfortable, then these wide receivers can eat us up. It's just too good of a group, and with Hawkinson on top of it, and so that's what the Lions did. So Aaron Glandale, and he you got the pressures. They blitzed and on over half of the passing downs, and like you said, Sam went Jet Sam, and I'm just curious if we can do the same thing again. I think that that KOC is smart enough to help coach up Dalton, Sam, and he's also been through it now, right? That was Darnold's never been in a game like that. It's like a playoff atmosphere. It's essentially a playoff game. You're playing for 5 on the road versus a 1 and a bye. And, his whole career has never been anything like that. So he went through it. He looked like a rookie that's never been through it. He played like a rookie, and now that he's been through it and KOC's been through it, I don't know that we can do the same thing. Let's just put it that way. I don't think we're going to need to get pressured, like Mark said, with 4, maybe 5, but we can't bring 6 like the Lions did all night and expect Darnold to miss, 8 open guys and overthrow them. It's just not going to happen again. So hopefully we can get pressure with our, especially off that our right side, their left side.
Yeah, I agree with that. And remember, we had Jared Verse played so well. He was crap talking the entire game and throwing up the skull chant, the taunt Vikings players and fans. So hopefully that karma doesn't, loop itself around this time around. But I hope we see another good day by that defensive pass rush, who had a fantastic day in that first time around against the Vikings. But shout out to everyone on that offense because they're damn good, and we're going to have to play some good defense to stop them. But on the other side of that, Rams Nation, how about that Vikings defense, who's pretty dang good too? Outside linebacker Jonathan Grenard, who's a Pro Bowler, along with Jared Verse. You have outside linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel, who's a Pro Bowler, along with our Jared Verse. As Van Ginkel, for anyone who did not know, the Rams made a pretty good offer to him to be a Los Angeles Ram and play outside linebacker for us, but Minnesota had a little more guaranteed money and some other incentive stuff that was going on. So he chose to go there as, hey, and ended up being that way. I'm glad we live in this timeline where it's Byron Young and Jared versus is our two guys. And so things have worked out beautifully. So Pro Bowlers on that side. Then you have Jonathan Bullard, Harrison Phillips, Jerry Tillery, veterans who can play fantastic in moments where you're like, wow, I haven't seen that in a while. That was fantastic from those guys. Then you have Blake Cashman, fantastic at inside. Ivan Pace Jr., who's had a good season. Stephon Gilmore, who I was a pretty proponent of trying to get over Tre'Davious White. I thought he would have played a good corner. He's playing fantastic there. Then you have Byron Murphy Jr., who was a former Cardinal, was Now he's a Pro Bowler with multiple interceptions at the corner spot there. Then you have All-Pro Harrison Smith. And then you have Cameron Bynum at the other safety spot. As you know, you see other dime packages and other players rotating. And then, oh, by the way, their first round pick, Dallas Turner, is barely seeing the field. That's just how good that group has been overall. But man, stacked team. Brian Flores, who's given Sean McVay trouble multiple times throughout the past. Great group. And they stifled that Lions offense this last week. And have had fantastic games overall. But good group. And I'll say this real quick. Brian Flores blitzed us not as much as I was expecting in that Thursday game. I expect that to be completely different this Monday night game. But, Paul, your thoughts on the Vikings defense and obviously Brian Flores leading the charge there, calling plays for them.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
Shout out to Flores, right? Tri-state area product. He loves that cover zero look. And you're right. He's been playing a lot more zone behind it. That's a big change from beginning in the season. So this is a typical Minnesota unit, man. Top to bottom, rock solid. One of my favorite players. I love that kid Pace. I just think, you just watch him play. He's always full tilt, makes big plays. Murphy's another great player. And you got the constant Harrison Smith, right? He's just always in the mix of things. So it's a solid defense. And just like we said about the offense, it's not a unit you can sleep on. You can't count on them to have another bad game. You're going to have to make things happen. So the Rams are going to have to be on their A game. Coach O is too good of a coach to have his team not ready for this game. And on top of that, he has knowledge of some of McVay's tendencies, some of the Rams players. So that's definitely going to factor into it as well. So this is going to be a great game. The Rams are going to have to bring their A game because Minnesota, you got to really feel for Coach O. He's only lost to two teams all year.
Coach O'Connell, right? Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, Coach O'Connell. So he's only lost to two teams all year. The Lions and the Rams, and now he's got to play the Rams again. You got to really feel for the guy. So, but it's going to be a great game. The great unit on both sides of the ball, rock solid. So we'll see how it goes. And, if there's any one element of their team that's really shaky was their kicker in that game, right? That kickoff really, really swung the momentum right before the half.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the weakest link out of everything. Special teams, which thank God ours is not a weakness anymore. You got Ethan Evans and Cardi kicking that rock anywhere they want. Thank God. But what about you, Mark? Your thoughts on this Vikings defense full of Pro Bowl level talent and Brian Flores leading the way for them?
Yeah, I'm going to have to tell you, I think Omar Spates is our Ivan Pace, right? Both undrafted. If I'm not mistaken, Ivan Pace went undrafted, surprisingly, and has turned out pretty darn good. I think it was Tom that said they're probably going to blitz a lot, and I think Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Puka may welcome that. I think that may end up being to the Rams' advantage. But we'll have to see. That's probably how this is going to play out. If they hung back in the opener, they're probably going to change it up and try to bring some heat on Stafford, and that'll be the other on both sides of the ball. Which quarterback is going to get pressure, is going to have to face pressure, and which one of them handles it the best. And my money is on Matthew Stafford.
It's money well spent. I agree. What about you, Tom? Thoughts on the Vikings defense and then Flores calling their plays?
Yeah, I mean, a great year by them. And Flores just done a fantastic job. This team has really responded. And so, yeah, he does like to blitz. I don't think that, that he did bring the blitz and Stafford ate him alive last time, but not as much as he usually does against other teams. And let's face it, who can play the blitz better than Stafford? He sees the field so well, his experience level. He sees what's coming, and his relationship with his receivers and his checkdowns and alternate routes is so solid that that's why it's a tough matchup for this team. They rely on bringing it to teams, and so it'll be interesting to see if we can establish the run. I know McVay's going to try to do that. If they start to load the box, how are we going to respond? It'll be a good chess match.
Yeah. A chess match that we won early in the year, and we got to win it again against a good unit. Kevin O'Connell, knowing the squad, Brian Flores. Tough matchup, good players, but man, Rams Nation, this Viking roster is good, but who are the best players on this Vikings team? They have many, but I think we got to start with the offense, as it's pretty clear. Justin Jefferson, a likely future Hall of Famer if he continues to just catch, 1,000 yards of receptions a year, and we'll keep that train going. Already a 4-time All-Pro. He has 10 touchdowns. I mean, no doubt about it. There's not many people on planet Earth playing pro football who can cover him, play in and play out. Definitely one of their best guys. Then you have Sam Darnold, who I think has been one of their best players this season. And obviously we saw New York Jets version of Sam Darnold this past week. But for the entire season, he's been a Pro Bowl, all-pro level quarterback based on the film. And he's got over 4,000 yards passing. He's got 35 touchdowns. Probably should have had a lot more in that Sunday game against the Lions. And he has 12 INTs. What a good ratio that is for throwing the ball a ton with O'Connell. And then Aaron Jones has over 1,000. He has 5 touchdowns. Jordan Addison, the former USC man, has 9 touchdowns as the second receiver in this offense. But Justin Jefferson, Sam Darnold, definitely some of the best players on their team. And then who would be that third in that mix? I mean, it has to be Andrew Van Ginkel. 11.5 sacks, Pro Bowl selection. He has multiple pick sixes. Should have had his third against the Lions. Has pass deflections. He's playing inside linebacker in certain packages. Dude is flying around everywhere. I mean, talking about an ultimate chess piece. This is what I'm sure they had envisioned for him with the Rams. And they said, Michael Hoyt, how about you do all that we had for Van Ginkel, right? Do the cheetah package with him, as we see Michael Hoyt playing some inside and rushing from different spots. And luckily he's handled that responsibility well too. But yeah, again, Blake Cashman, fantastic as well, as he did not play in that first meeting against the Rams, and that benefited us greatly. Jonathan Grenard, we talked about, a Pro Bowler. Byron Murphy, we talked about earlier. But Darnold, Jefferson, Van Ginkel, I don't even think it's a question. Those three are their best players. But, Paul, who are you worried about the most, and who do you think we need to keep our sights on the most out of those three players there?
The 2 outside linebackers, no question. That's where Minnesota generates their pressure. Van Ginkel and Grenard. Grenard has always been a solid player in this league, right? But, if you take a look at the consistency for both players, respectively, they're right around 12 sacks. And they've been playing, Pro Bowl caliber football all season. This one hiccup, but they both played really, really well in that game. So that's something the Rams are going to have to be aware of, right? Havenstein's coming back. He's missed a game, so we don't know, where he is. But, that shoulder strain, if it's going to impact something, what's it going to impact? Pass blocking, right? Because you have to extend your arm more so than when you're run blocking. Run blocking, you can get away with it a little bit more. So that's something we'll just keep an eye on. So the Rams are going to have to help out early on both of these players just to make sure that they don't swing the momentum early. Let the Rams sort of get their feet under them and then take it from there. But these are the two players for sure you're going to have to spotlight.
Yeah, good choice there, and gotta protect Stafford. Give him time to dissect, to digest, and launch some laser beams against that Brian Flores-led defense. But Mark, what about you? Who out of those three players, the Vikings' best players, do we need to key on the most, and are you worried about the most, truthfully?
Well, I think Andrew Van Ginkel, who by the way, reminds me so much of Clay Matthews. I feel like I'm looking
Is it
at
the
Clay
hair? What are you talking about?
I'm looking at Clay Matthews in purple hair. But he's the guy that, Cashman and Grenard are the type of guys that, can impact a game and you might not notice it play to play. But Van Ginkel, I think, can make splash plays that change the momentum of a game, game-changing play. So he's the one I'm most concerned about. Obviously, we just got to protect Stafford and make sure Van Ginkel. He's probably going to, get to Stafford in some fashion at some point. We just got to make sure it's not a game-changing play because he can make those plays for sure.
Yes, he can. And two defensive picks there at the beginning. I respect it. What about you, Tom? Out of the three best players for the Vikings, who are you worried about the most, and who do we need to key on the most?
Yeah, I mean, I think those guys are going to be they're the outside linebackers are their bread and butter. That's where the pressure comes from and stuff. But if we can, with the right play calling, the right looks, one of McVay's strengths and success factors has always been running different plays out of the same look. And if we can get those guys to overcommit and get them off balance by taking a hard angles and stuff and then run through them with some draws and things like that and slow them down. That's really what we're going to need to do. We can't let them tee off on us. It's just, I love Jackson and the Havenstein monster, but you can't let these guys tee off all. And one of the keys to success that I wanted to add from our first part of our conversation was the pass pro. I think that's been one of the biggest differences in our, in our run here. But I also, in terms of the players, though, I don't want to forget Gilmore and Griffin in the back end, right? I mean, Gilmore's getting a little older, but he's shrewd, and those are the kind of players that make plays. And he's been around, so it's a tough defense all the way around, and Flores has it cooking. So, but yeah, we're gonna have to look out for those outside linebackers, and then I also think those two corners are playing pretty solid.
Hey, I didn't mean to slight Justin Jefferson. I probably could have mentioned him as well. I don't know who's the best wide receiver in the game. It's either him or Jamar Chase, right? So he's definitely a guy that could blow this game up on us, as receivers have over the course of this season a couple of times, right?
He's going to be a man on a mission. After that game, you saw his face after that post game. He is going to be a man on a mission. The Rams better have something game plan for him, because he is not going to have two bad games in a row. And that dude is an absolute monster.
Yep. And Rams Nation, that's my pick.
He's our version of Puka, right? He goes, when we say who's going to be either the player of the game ball, like Mark had said, or is it or who's who do we look out for, right? That goes without saying.
Yeah, that's my pick, because you stole the words right out of my mouth there, Paul. He's had a couple games for his standards, and he's going to be, especially with O'Connell being like, no, we're not going to play my old foe and lose and not score more than 20 like we did last time, and obviously not score more than 10 this last week. So got to find a way to limit Jefferson from smoking us. Let other players beat us, because if Jefferson's killing us, then other guys will eventually get their turn later in the game. I'd rather just neutralize Jefferson and we go from there, but not that that's an easy task, but that's who I'm most worried about, because if we have to get in a track meet, I don't like our chances in this game. Got to stop their offense, limit them, but definitely it starts with number 18, the all-pro Justin Jefferson. No gritties at SoFi Stadium, please. I don't need to see it. But Rams Nation, we always like to talk about the history of our team, the Los Angeles Rams, versus whoever we're playing. So Rams versus Vikings history, and how the matchups look since the year 2000. We can obviously go back since way, way, way back, but we won't do that here today. So what does that history look like since the year 2000? We had a playoff matchup actually in the year 2000 where the Rams won in a mega shootout, 49-37. Wow, what a game that must have been if you would have saw that in person in St. Louis during the greatest show on turf era. And, we had their matchups throughout the years, and there was a little run there where we weren't winning from, 2009 to 2017. You're like, dang, we're losing a bunch of the Minnesota Vikings. But in recent years, we've been handling business, starting with that famous Thursday night game when Goff outdueled Kirk Cousins at the stadium or the Coliseum. That was a great game. I was there for that. Then you had the Super Bowl season matchup in 21. And then this last season that's going on right now, 2024, we beat them on Thursday Night Football 30-20. But overall, since 2000, gentlemen, Rams Nation, things have been going the Rams' way. And trends, whether you like them, hate them, or love them, they seem to have some truth to them. And luckily, the trend of winning against the Minnesota Vikings since the year 2000 has been on our side. Right, Paul?
Yeah, I have it. It's a shame. It's a shame too that we're meeting in the first round, but it is what it is. I hate to keep saying it, but it's a great matchup. The Rams have to bring their A game. The Rams apparently have a little bit of an edge to them based on some comments that were made about the Rams post game by another team. So hopefully the Rams will be an extra stage of nasty when this game rolls around.
Yeah, I hope so too. What about you, Mark? Thoughts on our history since the year 2000 with the Vikings?
I'm so happy you didn't talk about the 1970s. One of the most painful matchups of the 1970s. 4 times they knocked us out of the playoffs. We were probably overall in the 1970s, we probably were the most dominant regular season team, but couldn't get past the likes of the Minnesota Vikings. But I like the fact that we've won the last 3, and so we've beaten Sam Darnold as a Viking and as a 49er. So there's that. I like our chances.
I do too. Dang it. What about you, Tom? Thoughts on our history since the year 2000 with the Vikings?
Yeah, I mean, it is like, I think it does go back, run a little deeper for us OGs back in earlier days. They had their way in the playoffs, but yeah, I mean, I think it's been pretty even. We got the last 3. I mean, the one playoff, the last time we were in the playoffs with them was 2000, right? And so, it's a new day. It's a new teams, new cities, new everything. So, yeah, probably not much to it, but I'm happy with the matchup. I mean, it's a team we've beaten. I feel like we do match up well with them compared to maybe some other teams. Obviously, the quarterback's not very mobile and whatnot. So it's always a good matchup for the Rams in that regard. So, yeah, I think it's a good matchup, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and what makes it especially painful, Ian, and for you younger guys is in those 1970 matchups, the Rams were the better team, and in every instance they really were. And Minnesota proceeded to lose in the Super Bowl every time. And and I also find it annoying when Viking fans start comparing the Purple People Eaters, whatever their defensive line was, comparing them to the Fearsome Foursome. No comparison, sorry guys. Alan Page, Carl Eller were great defensive linemen, but they pale in comparison to the Fearsome Foursome.
Yeah, and real quick, let's just go off names. Purple People Eaters. All right, Fearsome Foursome. I mean, just what sounds better as a movie title and as like a, who do we got to face? The Fearsome Foursome. Dang. Or the Purple People Eaters. You're like, a little cartoonish. So I think off name alone, based off field play, Rams and those legends from the 60s.
Yeah,
so take that, Viking fans.
Yeah, it looks like we might have a sequel too. We might have the Fearsome Foursome 2 with this front 4, right? We had the Fearsome Onesome for 10 years in a row.
Yep, we had a good Robert Quinn year. We had a Sue year. We had a Dante Fowler year and a Ford year and a Miller year. I'm just saying, but like you're right. This young group of 4 can really make a name for themselves and kind of get that 2.0, which I didn't think about that. Damn, Tom, that's a great idea. Hopefully that sticks. Rams Nation, help us make that stick. But with that said, we gotta talk keys to victory, Rams Nation. How the hell are the Rams gonna win this wild card matchup again, playing the Vikings for a second time this season, as the first time around on Thursday Night Football went our way spectacularly for the nation to see. But before we get into everyone's keys to that victory, I think it's important to go through some quick stats about both teams real fast, as that could sway our opinions on this thing here. So tail of the tape, Vikings offense, primarily a top 10 unit, both in, points, passing yards. I know rushing yards a little more on the lower tier, more average, but they just throw it so dang much and they're so successful there. Yards per game has dipped over some of these, sluggish performances here and there. And then obviously the Lions game probably really skewed that down for sure. And then Rams defense facing that Vikings offense, middle of the pack with points per game, bottom 10 in yards given up, middle of the pack for passing yards per game. We're in the bottom half of the league for rushing yards per game. Thank you, Saquon and Arizona early in the year for screwing up those stats for us. So, hey, got to figure it out. Got to get to the quarterback like we talked earlier. And then Rams offense, hasn't been fantastic. Points per game has been a struggle. We're on the lower tier of the NFL. Yards per game, average. Passing yards per game, well, we are in the top 10. That is nice to see that at least Stafford's slinging it around. And then rushing yards per game is in the bottom 10, which is disappointing with the O-line and Kyron and Blake and others. But we know injuries really screwed that up for majority of the year, and teams loading the box have really skewed that as well, as we have watched all these games this season. And then Vikings defense, just a top 5 unit overall. Points per game, they're top 5. Yards per game, middle of the pack, but they stop people from scoring. That's the most important thing. Passing yards per game is very interesting, as they are in the bottom 5 with that, as another bend but don't break kind of stat there, as they're giving up yards but are not giving up points. And then rushing yards per game, they're number 2 overall, but you can say they're giving up the run, they're giving up the pass, so that's why that's pretty skewed there. But definitely a challenge against Brian Flores' defense there. But real quick, I'll start with you, Paul. Anything stand out to you with these team stats here?
Yeah, well, 2 things for the Rams for the rest of the playoffs. It's going to be decided by their run defense and their ability to run the ball. Everything is predicated on those 2 things. Everything's going to feed off of that. It's a fresh season. I love what McVay has been saying and the way he's been talking about everything, right? Faceless opponents, respect everyone, but fear no one. And they're absolutely right. Let me point this out, Ram Nation. The Rams have not lost, once again, not talking about the Seahawk game, which is a totally different disaster in and of itself. Thanks a lot, Seattle, right? But they have not lost since November 24th, right? If you look at it from that context, they have ripped off 5 wins. They have to win 4 to get back to what's behind me. So if you keep it in that context, the Rams are in very, very good shape. They have to get off to a fast start. And from this point forward, do not let your foot up off the gas, right? They have to watch tape of the greatest show on turf and play that kind of football. The season is over. You're healthier than you've probably ever been in the history of this franchise going into the playoffs under McVay, in all honesty, right? And look at the weapons they have. Let's just keep it in context. Look at the weapons they have on offense. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. Give it to your big guns. Let them win the game for you. You have Stafford, a proven baller. Protect him. Don't leave him sitting in the pocket. Those half rolls, man, when he's on those half rolls, he is throwing straight dimes, right? He can see the field, gets him away from the pressure. They got to go back to that a little bit. But when these teams start to man up, spread them. You got 4 wide receivers, throw them out there, scare the bejesus out of this defense. If you want to man up, go vertical on them, right? And that's what Stafford's going to do. He's going to catch fire, and then the Rams can just pound them with iron Kyron all game long. Wear out that defense, right? They're coming off of a game where they got run on them again. Put it in the back of their mind that it's going to be one of those games. So I love this matchup. With all due respect, love Coach O. Ramley forever. But at this point of the time, listen, they got to go down. You got to hurt them where it hurts, which is right up the middle.
Yep, agreed. What about you, Mark? Any stat right here pop out to you? Vikings Rams?
Well, their passing defense, they seem really vulnerable. And as much as we want Kyron we want them to pound the ball with Kyron, McVay just seems really hesitant to do that. So I agree. I hope they run the ball, but I think we're going to do our damage in the passing game. And I still think it comes down to our ability to limit the Vikings passing game as well. I'm not too concerned about the Vikings run game. I think we'll be okay there. There was a few years ago, I thought Aaron Jones was one of the best running backs in the league. He's still good, but I think he's fallen off a little bit. And Cam Akers is probably chomping at the bit to get some carries in this game. So that may happen. But yeah, I think McVay is going to end up throwing the ball to set up the run, and that's what I expect to see. Hopefully, we don't get off to a slow start, though. We can't afford a couple 3-and-outs in the first quarter. That's just not going to work, and that's something where this team is still fighting through, obviously.
Yep, can't have that. Tom, any thoughts on the stats here, Vikings Rams?
Yeah, I mean the slow start is a big deal. You can't get behind some of these better teams, but the thing that stands out to me when I'm looking at the NFC playoff, 7 teams in the playoffs. So look at the Rams offense, 22 points per game. Rams defense giving up 23. Okay, that's not normal for a playoff team. Like, you do not have a point differential negative as a playoff team, especially a division. I know our division stunk, but I mean, let's just look at the 7 teams. I'll just rattle them off real quick. Detroit plus 222, Philadelphia plus 160, Tampa Bay plus 117, Minnesota plus 100, Washington plus 94, Green Bay plus 122, LA Rams minus 19. So, I mean, it's not even close. We're 100 points behind the next best team. So it's our next worst team. So, that, hey, look, on the one hand, glass half empty. Wow, that's not good. Glass half full, like Paul pointed out, we've run off a bunch of wins. Obviously, point differential is positive in those games, obviously. And, the second half of the season after the bye, a lot of those points were given up, to teams like that Cardinal game and things like that. But, the bottom line is that there is hopefully they're using this kind of stuff as an underdog feel. This stuff is not, these kinds of stats are not lost on the other team and on the fans, as we've heard on X and other places. And so, hopefully they have a chip on their shoulder and can use what their big strength is. It's their big strength is just balance. This is the most balanced attack we've had. Even beyond the Super Bowl year, we had no balanced attack and won the Super Bowl because we won every game by 3 points. And so this is a much more balanced attack, and hopefully that can be maintained, and we don't just give up on the run and just try and win it through the air.
Yep, totally agree. And dang, Rams Nation, lot to get into, but a fun little tidbit here from NFL ref stats for anyone who cares about those things. And as people like to say, the refs are against us. This ref crew sucks. This ref crew this. So for the Minnesota Rams game on Wild Card Weekend, the officiating crew cheat sheet with ref John Hussey and additions from Shepherds, Troy Blake, Halichi Cruz, and others. So since 2016, home teams are an NFL best 101-45 with Hussey as their ref. Okay, that's really in our favor. Home teams are 11-4 with Hussey in 2024, this season going on. Home teams are 5-2 in Hussey's playoff career. And then Rams are 5-1 at home in Sean McVay's era with Hussey refereeing the game here in Los Angeles. So, hey, that's some nice, fun little stats right there that benefit us. And hopefully this game is in Los Angeles. And I'm going to continue to say that it is. And wow, I hope things continue to go our way with Mr. John as our head ref that will be officiating this wild card matchup. I thought that was very fun to share. And Rams Nation, I'm going to share this with you here, gentlemen, and Rams Nation. And I think this is kind of important to digest real quick about what Kevin Demoff had to say in the last couple weeks about the Rams and winning. And let me play that for you guys here real quick. And as that gets loaded,
then the chance to go compete and win another Super Bowl, not just on an FM picks basis, but on a homegrown, let's go draft to Kyron Williams, to Puka Nacua, that defense, and kind of look across that, a Bo Limmer, Steve Avila. You start to see some of that. That would be special too, to be able to do it a different way. There haven't been a lot of organizations that have been able to do that. But look, I think last year there was some doubt as to how quickly we could turn it over, and it was great to be able to race that. But I also want to we haven't won a playoff game since the Super Bowl. That standard is higher here than, it's not just making the playoffs. It's not just being around. We should be competing for Super Bowls, and we should be right back in to that window. And while I thought last year was a great turnaround, that's our expectation.
Oh, boom. Kevin Demoff, the team president and the voice of Stan Kroenke, for being honest, says, making the tournament ain't good enough. We're here to compete for championships, and that is the bar that is here. I absolutely love it. Thank you, Demoff, for always having some good talking conversations when he does show his face around. But with that, Rams Nation, one more little clip, and this is something that pissed me off this last week and irritated a lot of Rams fans out there, but it is the post-game handshake between head coaches Dan Campbell of the Lions and former offensive coordinator, now head coach for the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell. Let's take a little quick listen on this one once it loads up.
I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Might see him in 2 weeks.
Good job, great season. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Might see him in 2 weeks.
Good job, great season. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Might see him in 2 weeks.
Well. It seems like Dan Campbell and the Lions think that, no problem. Vikings are going to beat the Rams, and then they'll face each other again in the divisional round back in Detroit. And, be careful what you wish for, Dan, as the football gods usually do not bless the team that is overly confident, that is very greedy and saying little things. And whether it was on accident or people were like, oh, he's just being nice to O'Connell and just give him some sportsmanship. Don't give me a bunch of that BS. We'll see you very soon, Lions. And I believe that for sure. So real quick, your thoughts on that?
Tirico tried to add the maybe in there. Right. Oh, maybe we'll see you in 2 weeks. Right. That's not what he said.
That's not what he said at all.
2 weeks.
So real quick, gentlemen here with me in Rams Nation, let us know in the comments how you feel about those. With Kevin Demoff's comments about playoffs aren't good enough. We're here to win and make playoff runs and compete for Super Bowls. And now with the Lions, that little chitter chatter from their head coach expecting that the Rams will not make it past the first round. How do you feel about those things?
Well, I'll go first, I guess, and I don't put too much weight in what Campbell said. Of course, if it helps the Rams get a little extra motivated, so be it. Cool. And as far as Demoff, that's the way it should be, especially with a franchise like this that's been to 2 Super Bowls recently and has won one of them. They're kind of in that similar status of the Dodgers in that regard. That's the expectation. You get to the playoffs and that's not the end of it. You got to get to the Super Bowl and win it once in a while. And there's other franchises that maybe were perfectly content to get to the playoffs, once every 7-8 years, but not here at SoFi. It's got to be a higher standard. And I'm glad he said that. And I think the coaching staff is on the same wavelength, and let's go get another Super Bowl.
That's right. What about you, Paul? Thoughts on Campbell's comments, and then thought on team president Demoff's about the playoffs and got to win championships?
Well, I'm gonna prioritize it by Demoff first and say, he said what everybody else should be thinking, right? Excellence is not an accident. Excellence is a way of life, right? From top to bottom, this organization has been all in from the, I guess from the day McVay arrived, right? They've been all in, and there go the chips right to the middle of the table. There it is. You got to win 4 games, and whoever's in the way, like McVay's been saying, so be it. It is what it is. But that's the ultimate goal, and he's absolutely right. And as for Campbell's statements, I'd love it. For everybody else, that was, now you understand why we wanted the Lions in round one. That, that's how it is. It's up to the Rams. The Rams, that's their job. It's their job to shut up players and coaches like this. If they're going to talk about your team and do it publicly, they're letting you know that they're not afraid of you. It's your job to make them afraid of you. So that's the bottom line, right? And listen, Higgs is back. There's a lot of motivation here. You can't set a better stage. Obviously, you got, can't look past Minnesota. They're a great team. But if that does happen, that's a great storyline. And it's all on the Rams to, like I said, it's your job to shut them up.
Yeah, yep. and Stuart Campbell apparently doesn't know how the playoffs work either, if he gave it any thought. I mean, if Green Bay or Washington wins, they'll be going to Detroit, not Minnesota, right?
I don't think anybody ever accused Campbell of being a Mensa candidate, so I think you're spot on.
What about you, Tom? Thoughts on Campbell's dumb comments, and then obviously team president about playoffs?
Campbell's is irrelevant. I mean, unless the Rams play the Lions, otherwise it's irrelevant. It's not. If KOC had said it, that would have been a completely different ball game, right? So, if we play the Lions, that'll be more relevant. But in terms of Demoff, I think he and everybody knows there are 32 teams, and maybe 5 of them are just not going to be competitive, or 10 of them because they're just trash ownership and front office and whatever. But there's 20 competitive teams in this league, year in and year out, and you can't be the Super Bowl favorite every year. You can't, push all your chips into the middle every year. It's just not good business. And this was a year that they didn't do that. They were young and they didn't have a lot of expectations, I think. And I think that his point was, we are always thinking about how to get to win the championship. We're not, the Steelers and thinking about how to win, have a winning record every year, right, or something like that. So, having said that, I don't think that the Rams expected to. I mean, maybe they expected to be here and make the playoffs, but I don't think they really expected this was going to be their year with the youth and a lot of the new free agents and things like that. I don't think that was their mindset. They started at 1-4. This as I pointed out earlier, a minus 19-point differential. Having said that, I think Paul's point we haven't driven home enough from the beginning of the show here, which is this is the healthiest team in the playoffs, and I don't even think it's even close. Okay, so we lost our backup running back. Like who else are we really missing that adds is a significant piece of this? And at no point in the McVay era has this ever been the case. And I would challenge any team in the playoffs, in the McVay era in the last 8 years to be this healthy as well, and find their number one unit fully healthy for the playoffs. So I think that's one of the reasons the Rams are so scary. And so I think that, good for the Rams. Youth is valuable in that regard, right? We've been a very old team to some degree, older team anyway, last several years. And so Demoff's point is, hey, we're going to keep fighting for it every year, put ourselves in the best situation as an organization to be there every year and have a chance every year. And then when the time is right, shove into the middle like they did the Super Bowl season. But they didn't do that this year. There are not a lot of midseason, no really big hardcore midseason signings or anything like that. And here we are. And so, you know what? Overperforming and kind of house money at this point.
Yep. But gosh, gotta win playoff games. I agree. You want these LA fans to support and spend a lot of money and go to these games. No more first round exits. We've had too many of those already in the McVay era, in my opinion, with how talented these teams have been. So let's win some ball games, let's make some deep runs and give ourselves a shot to be a Final Four team with a chance to win another Super Bowl. But woo, Rams Nation. What are these final keys to victory? Now that we've covered all the stats, now that we've covered all the opposing players on the Vikings, now that we've shown you some clips, some motivation for the players and the organization potentially with team president, opposing coaches, I'm sure other stuff players will say will come out of the woodworks as the week goes on. And yes, we are the healthiest team. The Rams probably aren't practicing very much, so we aren't going to really have any of those serious practice reports going on. But with all that said, How the hell are the Rams going to win this game against the Vikings? So I'll start with you, Mark. What do the Rams need to do to win this game and advance in this playoff tournament?
Yeah, I think I've already given away my answer 2 or 3 times. It comes down to Sam Darnold to a large degree, and Matthew Stafford, the two quarterbacks, how they're protected, how they perform under pressure. And I think we kind of know the answer with Matthew Stafford. He can have off games though, not very often in big time games. Does he underperform though? So it really comes down to me as Sam Darnold and how he performs, what kind of pressure we get on him, how many times he can connect or misconnect with Justin Jefferson, all those things, kind of kind of comes off of what we saw against Detroit. I mean, if it were for that Detroit game, maybe we wouldn't be as concerned about Sam Darnold, but what we saw there was very telling. So to me, that's the key. That's the singular key to this game is the quarterback play and primarily Sam Darnold.
Yep, couldn't agree more. What about you, Paul? What are the keys to victory for the Rams to win this game and advance in the tournament?
From the first snap of the game, establish your identity, physical, focus, play your best football for 60 minutes. Trust that you have, if you're lucky enough to have players like Stafford, Puka, King Cup, Kyron, and you have a savage defense that can get after it. Control the clock on offense, put it in the end zone, score 6 every chance you get. Keep your defense fresh and let them go full tilt, right? And, control the ground game on defense. Listen, put it on the quarterbacks to beat you. Stafford versus whoever, my money's on Stafford.
Easy. Money. Take the Hall of Famer. Take the Super Bowl winner. I couldn't agree more. What about you, Tom? What are your keys to victory for the Rams to advance?
Yeah, I think it's there's really no, it's a very even matchup as we've kind of talked about. I think across the board, and we have an advantage at quarterback. I think that is going to be the difference in the game. But having said that, it's going to be about the trenches. It's going to be about, can we get home with 4? If we can't and we have to, blitz, I think they're going to have some stuff dialed up. I think that's all they're working on this week, quite frankly, because I think after what they went through last week, that's all they need to work on, quite frankly. And so, if we can get home with 4, maybe 5, the occasional 5th guy off the edge, or a cornerback blitz, or somebody coming delayed up the middle or something like that, that's fine. I just don't want to see the bring in the house a lot. They're going to be ready for it. And the yak with Addison and Jefferson and the crew, not going to be good. And then on the offensive side, if we can establish that run, this is almost the key to every NFL game, but it's so true in the playoffs and in this game. We're going to have to really establish that physicality, like Paul said up front, from the beginning. And if we can do those 2 things, it's going to be a long day for the Vikings, and they're going to be reacting. McVay and that whole lineage of coaches has always said, the key to winning football games in the NFL on a consistent basis is making the other team react to you, not reacting to the other team, and imposing your will and making them move first. And then the chess match is on. And if you get them on the run, you're good to go. If you're the one that's chasing them down, they're going to scorch you, and we're reacting to them. So we need them to react to us, and that does start with what Paul said, the physicality up front and establishing Kyron. If we can do that, we'll win this match.
Yeah, but couldn't agree more with that. And Rams Nation, my quick points. It all starts with this offense. I expect our Rams defense to maybe not pressure Sam Darnold as much as we did in that Thursday night game earlier in the season. Just be honest, Jared Verse, our whole D-line, just wreaked havoc on them. I just don't expect that to be the case a second time around. I'm sure O'Connell and them will have some answers. And now that every Vikings coach went and had to go shake Jared Verse's hand for how good he is, they're going to be like, all right, let's double team that dude every play. So I expect Verse's impact to not be as insane as it was on that Thursday game. So other guys are going to have to step up. Can Braden Fisk continue to get pressure up the middle? Can Kobe Turner show up? Can Byron Young, who's had a solid season, can he get consistent pressure on that outside? That's going to be key, because Jared Verse, I guarantee, is going to be double team a majority of this game, as he should be, because he's an awesome player. That's going to be the main factor, I think, getting to Sam Darnold. Offensively, of course, protect Stafford, run the ball, and all the things that we love and we love to see happen when we watch games. But my key to victory is, can McVay be unpredictable, not predictable, and surprise Brian Flores on defense with some play calls they were not preparing for or they are not expecting? And what does that look like? How about some other run plays other than just duo and inside zone and a couple stretch outside zone run plays? How about something else? How about a little more counters, some traps, some power? Use a fullback, use 3 tight ends. Now that you have Higbee in the fold, right? Now you can deploy tons of different formations. Get Jay Witt, Jordan Whittington, more 2-2. Go 5 wide. How about you go 4 wide? Mix and match, more tight end screens, running back screen. I think the more surprises that McVay could have, both play calling and formation wise, and personnel grouping, right? Who's out there, I think will better our chances to move the ball on a Brian Flores-led defense and get us points into the damn end zone, which has been a freaking struggle for, feels like, forever now, this entire season. Because just like that Thursday game, I don't expect us to smoke them out of the gate just throwing the football like Stafford did when he had 4 passing touchdowns. We're going to have to be more creative to move the ball a second time around. And I think if McVay does that, we'll have a great chance. And then special teams. Can Joshua Carty make his long field goals and continue that trend? Because there's going to be times where Rams Nation, we're going to get stifled by that Vikings defense. But can Carty hit those 50-plus yarders, which is going to be key to keep us alive in these games? Or do we turn it over on downs there where the Vikings offense will have some good field position? So Carty, continue kicking well. And then on the other kicking aspect with Ethan Evans, who leads the league in punts inside the opposing 20, by the way. Wow, fantastic. Can he kick well and get that Vikings offense to have to drive 80-plus yards to get any points at all? And I think those are the keys to victory. But at the end of the day, do the Rams want it more? Are they motivated by all the stuff in the media? Because, all the NFL experts, everyone's picking the Vikings this week. I've been seeing it. There hasn't been the full allotment of picks, Rams Nation, but everyone's rolling with the Vikings to beat us in LA. And I think they're making a grave mistake for thinking that it's going to be that easy or it's just that convincing that the Vikings are going to come out and get us. But with all that said, Rams Nation, what are our early score predictions? Again, it's early in the week. Still a lot of stuff to unfold with injuries and yada, yada, yada. But we got to give it to you here and talk about how the hell we think this game is going to unfold with the numbers. So I'll start with you, Mark. What is your early score prediction for this Rams versus Vikings game on Monday Night Football?
Before I make my prediction, I wanted to note that Will Brinson of CBS Sports is picking a Rams-Bills Super Bowl. So that's kind of nice. He's on the Rams bandwagon. And I'm also going to make a prediction. I think you got to me, Ian, talking about the Rams' creativity on offense. I think Jordan Whittington's going to get a surprising number of touches in this game. And some of those touches, several of them will be behind the line of scrimmage, jet sweeps, screens, that type of thing. That said, my prediction is Rams 31, Vikings 27. I think it's going to be a little high scoring. I think both offenses are going to have some really big moments in this game. I think it's going to be really entertaining, very exciting, and a close game. Rams win 31-27.
Woo, another shootout where we stress at the end. Well,
Right.
I'll take a victory. That's fine with me. Great pick there. I like that score there for sure. But what about you, Tom? What is your early score prediction? Rams win? Rams lose? What do you think?
Rams win 27-20. A couple of field goals for each team, and Rams outscore them 3-2 on the touchdown front. So, yeah, I think it'll be but the Rams do need to get out to a fast start. We cannot, as Paul mentioned, and we've all mentioned, can't go the donuts on the on the first quarter and not do anything and put our defense, get our defense tired. And it's been the nemesis of this team. And I mean, the fact that made the playoffs, given how atrocious it's been in the red zone and everything else, is a testament to how good this team can be. So again, glass half full on that front.
Yep. Got to start fast. Couldn't agree more. Dang, it's been irritating all year. But Paul, what is your early score prediction here? Rams win, Rams lose. What do you think?
Yeah, I got the Rams winning 27-21. They're well rested. They come out swinging, and they land a couple of body blows, and they put them away in the fourth quarter.
Gosh, I hope so. I hope we see a physical game, and I hope it ends up being the style of football that you and I enjoy. Smash mouth with some flair, right? Run the ball, hit people in the mouth, and then let's go over top and get some points. I think that would be a good score there for sure. And Rams Nation, what is my early score prediction? Yes, many of you call me a pessimist. Many of you say I'm a Rams hater secretly. I am definitely not. It just the offense pisses me off week in and week out after I go through all the tape and to see how much better it could be. And I expect this to be a struggle again. I just sincerely do, but I do think the Rams will win 24-23. And how did I get to that score? I do think the Vikings are going to take some chances going for it on fourth down. Maybe they miss a PAT. Maybe they miss a field goal with their kicking struggles, and they end up with multiple field goal attempts, and maybe that's how they end up with 23, or maybe they have a missed PAT that happens to them as well. But I don't think we'll hit the 30 burger or beyond. That'd be great. But just based on how it's been going, based on a Brian Flores-led defense a second time around after they got torched by us earlier in the year, I just don't think we're going to have this high-flying affair. And just got to lean into what we do. Run the rock, smash people in the mouth, and let's have that flair that I talk about outside of that. Be diverse. Have them on their heels with the type of plays you're calling. Offense and even defensively too, as we have good groupings where we can confuse them out of all the different spots. But gosh dang it, I am excited for this game, Rams Nation, as Rams versus Vikings, Monday Night Football, January 13th, 5 p.m. And I will be there at that game, Rams Nation. I expect to be there no matter what's going on in Southern California. I believe we will have that game here, and I expect you to do everything you possibly can to get out there. I know ticket prices aren't the cheapest. I know there's a lot of stuff going on. There's other things to take care of. Do it. But if you can be out there, Rams Nation, give this team a legit home field advantage. Give this team something to feel and quantify in the air at SoFi Stadium, because no matter you're in high school, Pop Warner, college, or the NFL, having a legit home field advantage with a good home crowd, it's a major positive factor into winning or losing ball games. So hopefully you're freaking out there, and I'll see you there. Pink lot for anyone who tailgates. I'll see you out there for sure. But with that said, before we get out of here, gentlemen, any final thoughts, Mark?
Not really. I mean, it's going to be kind of painful sitting through a whole weekend waiting for this game to get here. But man, it's going to be fun. Monday Night Football. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Sweet. What about you, Paul, before we get out of here? Any final thoughts?
And for our LA Ramley, keep your head up. We're all pulling for you, and hopefully by game time, all this will be behind us.
Yep, I hope so too. Tom, before we get out of here.
Yeah, the other day, right after, I think it was Monday or maybe it was Tuesday. I guess it was Monday after that game where we knew who we were playing. This car flies around the corner and just terribly cut. You get cut off every now and then. But this car flew into my lane, screeched on the brakes, and I'm like, what the heck? I haven't been cut off like that in a while. And you always want to see who it is, right? So no road rage, just But I look up, trying to look over there, and of course, there's a Minnesota Vikings license plate. And I'm like, okay, it's game on. So, hey, if you're watching, Minnesota fan in Modesto, California, we're coming for you.
Now, do you have a Ram frame on your car? Was that what brought this on?
No. That's a good point. I was getting answer. I didn't have my hat. I don't have a Rams frame, no stickers, and so forth. And so, yeah, there was no motivation. It was just pure serendipity.
And people from Minnesota are supposed to be so nice.
It was obviously a mistake. It wasn't malicious, and but anyway, I just thought, what, that's setting the tone for this week.
Yep, it is. The fate of the universe. Everything
right.
is on the Rams side of things to be motivated for many reasons that we pointed out, and even the fan side, as Tom just pointed out. Let's go kick some ass, Rams Nation. Get out there to SoFi if you can. Let's win a ball game and let's enjoy it together. There, here, wherever you may be. Let's go Rams. But with that said, Rams Nation, thanks for tuning in on this edition of the Rams Up Roundtable. I'm Ian. That's Tom. That's Mark. That's Paul down there. And gosh dang it, we thank you very much for tuning in. Like, subscribe, and share this video and podcast with all your fellow Rams fans and football fans. We very much appreciate it. Stay safe, Los Angeles, and we'll see you very soon. Go Rams, baby.
All right.
Ramley forever.
That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.